Hi everyone, welcome back to Sariel and the Sword of Azathoth, the series where I combine Mythic Game Master Emulator with Scarlet Heroes and U.com to give you an Indiana Jones inspired role-playing game that is improvised and played solo. Today we're on act number 3, the final act, the act where we go into the dungeon. So in this episode, we'll start using the dungeon rules from Scarlet Heroes in the solo gaming section. You may have seen a video I did about this some time ago, where I go through all the solo gaming sections in Scarlet Heroes and kind of give you a little breakdown. So for those who are interested, this will also serve as a little bit of a demonstration. But first, let's go back to our story elements, because we are gonna wrap this story up very soon. I think there's only gonna be one episode after this. So this is the episode right before the finale, where we set up the finale. So if you go to my board, we'll first start on the adventure list. So we have met the job contact, and we know who is tasking us with getting the scroll. It was Lord Reginald Blackmore. But we have two open threads that we had from the past, and it is how did Sariel meet Dario, and how did Sariel meet Marcus? Well, I'm gonna try to answer this one, or give more background to their relationship in this episode. And well, we could say that we have a new thread. So here would be the new thread, help Lord Reginald Blackmore find the Sword of Azathoth, because we have been pretty much conscripted into this adventure. I also added two elements to the character list. I added the Lost City of Sand, because that will be almost like a character in itself. It's going to influence the story, so I'm putting it in the character list. And I added Imelec. If you don't remember him, I'm going to cover it in the summary. But he's basically the astronomer, kind of wise man that assists Lord Reginald Blackmore. So, before we begin episode 8, we'll have a little recap. This is it. Sariel has reached the Lost City of Sand, a place of legends that captures the imagination of all who hear about it. As a chief, Sariel was hired by Lord Reginald Darkmoor to track an ancient scroll pointing to this location. Alas, she was outplayed by her ex-lover and childhood friend, Dario, and she only managed to bring back an elephant statuette mysteriously linked to the lost city. However, it seems that Imelec, the Lord's astronomer, was able to guide them there after all. Sariel is not an intellectual type, so she'll leave the details to him. Her acolyte, Marcus, seems puzzled about all of this, but he's probably just asking too many questions. What's important is that adventure awaits, and there is the second half of her payment waiting for her at the end. After slaying the undead Hydra that was guarding the city's entrance, that was in the last episode, Sariel takes some well-deserved sleep. As Sariel starts drifting to sleep, her head is still abuzz with the events of the day. She has a few thoughts about Sir Tristan Bloodwood. This young knight served more or less as a human shield as they were fighting the Hydra.
Hopefully he'll be back on his feet in a few days,
she thinks to herself. Finally, Sariel's thoughts unexpectedly drift to Dario.
I wonder what he is up to,
she wonders. She hasn't seen him since they both tried to steal Sam Salazar's scroll.
By now he must have found a way to sell them to someone, maybe even to Sam Salazar.
She finds that idea quite amusing. With this, begin episode 8. Scene 9, Chaos 5. I expect that Sariel dreams about a petty theft she did with Dario when they were children. This will serve as an answer to my thread, how did Sariel meet Dario? We'll have a little vignette from their childhood to start us off. Though that will only happen if I roll a 6 or above. If I roll a 5 or lower, something else will happen. Well, there we go. Just what I needed. We have an expected result. So I could come up with what happened, what kind of theft they got up to, and how they met through it. But since I've been using u.com to come up with those kinds of choices, I will use that website again. If you don't know what it is, it's a little bit like ChatGPT. You can ask it questions, and through AI, it's gonna give you answers. Those answers are not always tremendous, but usually they give a good bit of inspiration. So my prompt is as follows. I am playing a fantasy role-playing game. In this scene, I am delving in the backstory of a thief named Sariel. The scene is from her childhood when she was a street urchin. She got up to petty thefts. In this scene, she meets a mischievous boy called Dario. Dario is also a street urchin, and the two will form a long-lasting relationship based on their meeting. Sariel is more of a thrill seeker and innocent in her stealing, while Dario is more pragmatic and calculating. Give me a choice between 3 potential petty thefts they could have been up to as kids, leading to them meeting and teaming up as they escape the law or run from disgruntled merchants. The theft should be relatively innocent. Each choice should be laid out in 50 to 100 words. Choice 1. They both attempt to steal a loaf of bread from the local bakery. Choice 2. Sariel tries to steal a shiny trinket from a merchant's stall. Choice 3. Sariel and Dario hatch a plan to steal a colorful kite from a vendor during a festive fair. Let's see. This is not the most original, but I think I'm gonna go with choice number 1. Sariel and Dario's meeting is set in motion when they both attempt to steal a loaf of bread from the local bakery. Sariel, driven by her hunger and curiosity, sneaks into the bakery and snatches a warm loaf, unaware of the consequences. Just as she is about to make her escape, she bumps into Dario, who was eyeing the same loaf. They exchange a mischievous smile, realizing they share a common goal. Together they flee the scene, their laughter echoing through the narrow alleyways. Sariel is brought back to an old memory of hers. It was back in the streets of Parthenon during the fall, when she couldn't have been more than 7 or 8. She was coming back from the woods, her basket nearly empty, with only a handful of small mushrooms she could have for supper. On her way to her usual spot in the dockyard, she walked by a small eatery, not one of the really low-quality ones, one that was visited by merchants seeking to reward themselves after a good day at the market. She could smell the aroma of freshly baked bread. Pork loaves is what people would call them, the kind of food that fill you up really good. Guided by her nose, she went around the small building, where a small shuttered window opened directly onto the kitchen. To her surprise, there was a little boy there, standing on the tip of his toes, trying to reach for the windowsill. You see, the builders of this eatery were smart enough to put the window high up on the wall, preventing small animals and pests like us from snatching their products. So I have a mythic question. Did Dario accept her help in exchange for splitting up whatever they could grab? I think that is likely. We get a 78. No, 79, sorry. Well, 79 is a no. So I guess Dario was already kind of willful like that. She laid out her offer, but the boy looked a little bit upset at the prospect of sharing, and he simply went back to trying to reach the window. Sariel, annoyed by his attitude, just replied she would show him how to do this. She gobbled up the mushroom and then upturned her basket, using it as a step stool to reach for the window. So since she's a kid, I don't really know how I would handle her stats, so instead I'll just make it another fate chart question, and I'm gonna say it's a 50-50 chance. He was probably pretty agile as a kid, since she still is. 96. Oh boy. It is an exceptional no. Stretched as much as possible, her fingers could almost reach the edge of the windowsill. If only she could stretch just a little bit more. Her concentration was suddenly interrupted by a local peacekeeper, a guardsman from the city watch.
Shoo! Stop your thieving little ways, children!
He exclaimed, waving his hand like one waves animals away. Sariel jumped in surprise, turning deep red as she got caught, and she realized the little boy was not there anymore. So did Dario manage to grab a loaf while she was distracted? I think that it's likely. 56. Yep, that is a yes. She heard someone inside the eatery shouting,
"Hey!
then sounds of footsteps hurrying away.
This kid stole one of my loaves!"
Exclaimed the baker. Sariel saw the watchman darting around the corner, trying to spot the little boy, so she almost instinctively bent down to grab a rock and with a hollow bonk, hit him right in the back of his helmet. She heard a giggle a few meters away, then she started running with a grin on her face. The watchman looked confused, debating internally on which child he should chase after first. So, to cut this short, in the end, did Dario and her share the loaf of bread? I think it's very likely. I mean, it is a fond memory of her meeting with Dario. What? It's a 93. Sheesh. So it's a no. It wasn't that night that they would end up sharing the spoils of their thievery. After all, Parthenon is a big city. But it's not such a big city that the two errant kids didn't recognize each other on the street. The ice had been broken, and through their little encounter, they had developed a kind of mutual respect. They would end up teaming up hundreds more times, going from stealing food to stealing valuables. Sariel saw it more as a game and as a kind of harmless thing. After all, they were kids when they started. And they were hungry at that. And then, as she became a woman grown and that habit never really went away, well, she simply didn't think about it all that much. That is, not until that fateful night when Dario and her split up after the Lord Hagen job. If you can't remember, that was the last flashback, so quite a few episodes ago. After going after those rebel bannermen and their families, she couldn't shake the feeling that she might have really hurt people. As her mind was filling with those thoughts, her dream turned into a nightmare. She remembered meeting Dario again in Al-Wadi, how he grabbed her arm and she injured him. The tiger getting loose at Sam Salazar's party, filling her head with a bestial roar. The vengeful man who stole from Salazar, pointing a crossbow at her. And the Hydra, glaring at her with its 6 heads. 6 heads swirling at her with 6 pairs of dead eyes. 6 heads devouring Sir Tristan, and for a second it felt as if she was the one being devoured. She was awoken suddenly by the sound of a blowing horn. So we end the scene there. We add +1 chaos, because it was a nightmare. And we are starting on scene 10 with chaos 6.